Before the lake, there was a valley, and in the valley there was a creek called Salt Creek, and along the creek there were farms and churches and one-room schoolhouses, and there were graveyards where the dead had lain 100 years, believing they would lie there 100 more. There was a post office at Paintown. There were houses with wells and root cellars and porches that faced the morning sun, and families in them who had never lived anywhere else and never intended to. And then the men from the government came and stood in the fields with their instruments and their paper, and they said there would be water. They took the valley the way water takes everything, which is to say slowly, and then, all at once, the houses were emptied. The dead were moved where they could be found, and left where they could not. The creek backed up behind the dam like a thing swallowing its own tail, and the water rose through the bottomland and up the porch steps and over the roof lines, and it did not stop rising until the maps had to be drawn again. They called it Monroe Reservoir, or Lake Monroe, as some people say. 10,000 acres of drowned world. On a calm day, the lake lies flat and blue and gives no account of itself, and people ski across it and pull fish out of it, and never once think about what those fish swim through down there in the dark. Door frames, fence rows, the stone thresholds of schoolhouses where children stood to say their letters. Where we lived, the water forced the county to lift the road. They built it up higher along the grade so it would hold in all but the worst of the flood stages. And the old road, the low road, the original mile of it with its 2 bridges, they simply turned their backs on. For a while, you could still drive it if you knew it was there. A cutoff the old-timers used out of habit more than need. Then the county quit patching it and quit mowing it. And the woods, which had been waiting at the edges the whole time, came back to take what was theirs. By the 1980s, the blacktop was cracked and heaved and grown through with ragweed and sassafras, and the bridges had rotted at the bone and gone down into the creeks they crossed. You could stand at the mouth of that road in high summer and see nothing but a green tunnel closing on itself. You could tell a road had been there once. That was near all you could tell. There were 4 of us then. Lori, the oldest, near enough grown that summer, then Jarrett, then Jennifer, then me, the youngest, by 7 years, 5 years old, and just barely a person yet. We lived close enough to the lake that the lake was in everything, in the fog that came up the hollows on fall mornings, in the smell of the mud when the water drew down, in the stories the grown people half told, and then quit telling when they saw us listening. We did not call that old mile of pavement Monster Road back then. Nobody called it anything. It earned its name in the space of about 2 days, one summer, and it has kept that name in my family for 40 years. What follows is true. I was there for part of it. For the rest, I have my sister's and my brother's own accounts, gathered and kept, because memory is a thing that must be gathered while there are still hands to gather it. I learned that the hard way. It starts with Lori. Her cat was called Rain Dancer, a brown tabby built low and strange, legs too short for the rest of him, so that he moved through the grass like something poured rather than something walking. She loved that cat the way the oldest child loves a thing, which is to say with a seriousness the rest of us had not grown into yet. That summer, she went away for a few days, and when she came home, the cat was gone. A neighbor woman told her she had seen him crossing her yard, headed down toward the lake. The neighbor lived closer to the water than we did, and so that was the direction the world offered, and Lori took it. She got on her bike in the falling part of the day and rode out alone to bring him home. This is what she told us. I will give it as near to her own words as I am able. The old road dead-ended at a swimming hole, down where the first bridge had washed out years before. Kids swam there sometimes when the water was up. She stopped there and stood astraddle of her bike and called the cat's name into the trees and got nothing back but her own voice gone small among the leaves. She rode a ways, stopped, called, rode again. The light was going out of the sky the way it does in deep summer, slow and then sudden, and the whippoorwills had started up. Then she heard dogs. 2 of them, maybe 3, off through the trees toward the field by Lucas Hollow Road. Not the loose, easy barking of dogs running a rabbit. This was the other kind, the pitched and frantic kind, all of them ringed up and hollering at one place. They had something treed. She could not see what. It was full summer, and the canopy was heavy with leaf, and the corn stood tall in the field between, and the dark was coming down hard now, the trees going to shapes, and the shapes going to one shape. She stood in the road and listened. And then, out of that tree, came a sound she has spent 40 years trying to fit a name to. Snorting. Deep and wet and huffing. She said it sounded like a pig, like a big hog up in that tree snorting and blowing. And she stood there and told herself that was impossible, that hogs do not climb, that nothing that sounded like that had any business being up off the ground. And while she was telling herself that, the tree began to shake. Not sway, shake, the whole crown of it thrashing in the windless dark like the tree itself had taken a fright. Whatever was up in it was heavy, and whatever was up in it was angry, and the dogs below it were losing their minds. Then it jumped. She heard it leave the limbs, and she heard it hit the ground, and when it hit the ground, it let out a great blast of breath. A huge emptying of air like a bellows struck flat, and then it was running toward her, toward the road, where she stood over her bike in the dark. She could not see it, but she could see the corn, and the corn was moving. Whole rows of it whipping and parting in a line that was coming at her, with the dogs baying behind it. She did not wait to meet it. She turned the bike for home and stood on the pedals and rode, and the sound of the thing came on behind her, the corn hissing, the dogs wild, her own breath loud in her head, and when she had put some distance in and turned to look back, it had already crossed the road. Whatever it was had come out of that field and crossed the open blacktop with dogs on its heels, and she never saw so much as its shadow. Down near where the old bridge used to stand, it went up a second tree. She stopped then. She should not have, and she knew she should not have, but she stopped in the dark road and listened, because there is a part of us older than sense that has to know. The dogs had it ringed again, barking themselves raw, and the thing in the tree was snorting and blowing, angrier now, that same impossible hog sound coming down out of the black limbs by the dead bridge. Then she heard it jump a second time, the heavy meat sound of it striking the ground. And the dog stopped barking and started fighting. She heard the whole of it from the road, the snarling and the tumbling and the thrash of brush, and then the dogs began to scream. Not yelp, scream. A sound she said she had never heard a dog make before, and has never heard one make since, one and then another, high and terrible in the dark. And then nothing. No dogs, no snorting, no brush moving. The whole drowned valley gone silent as the bottom of the lake, and my sister alone on the road in the dark with a mile between her and home. She rode that mile faster than she has ever ridden anything, and she came in the door white as chalk and told us what I have just told you. I would like to tell you, Rain Dancer came home trotting up the lane a day or two after. The truth is, I cannot remember whether he ever came home at all, and neither can she. That is its own kind of answer, I suppose. Memory keeps what it can carry. It dropped the cat somewhere on that road, and it kept the screaming of the dogs. The next afternoon we went back. You will ask why. Anyone would ask why, hearing what she heard. But you were not a child in Brown County in the 1980s with a whole summer stretched out in front of you and a mystery lying at the end of a dead road a mile from your house. Fear is a strange coin at that age. You spend it as fast as you get it. And besides, it was daylight, and there were 4 of us, and there is no braver animal on this earth than a pack of siblings in the daylight. We had 2 bikes between the 4 of us. Lori pedaled, and I rode her handlebars. Jennifer rode Jarrett's. That was how children traveled then, perched up on the bars with your feet held out of the spokes and your fingers wrapped white around the steel, and nobody thought a thing about it. We stopped first at the swimming hole and stood our bikes and listened. Nothing. The woods in the afternoon were just woods, cicadas ratcheting up and dying off, the green smell of the water. If you had come upon us there, you would have seen 4 kids standing quiet in the sun for no reason you could name. So we rode on, down the old low road itself, the mile of it, the weeds standing tall as our heads on either side and the pavement coming apart under the wheels in slabs and scales. We rode all the way back toward the dead bridge where the dogs had gone quiet. We found no dogs. We found no hog. We laughed about that a little, the way you laugh in a place where you do not want to be quiet. Then we found the footprints. They were pressed into the soft ground off the shoulder of the road, and we stood around them the way people stand around a thing that has fallen out of the ordinary world. They were large. They were shaped wrong for anything we knew, and shaped familiar all at the same time, long and flat, with the toes plain to see, human-looking. That is the only honest way to say it. They looked like the footprints of a large barefoot man out there in that grown-over nowhere where no man had reason to stand, and they were bigger than a man's, and none of us said the word we were all thinking, because saying it would have made it real. We decided we had seen enough. We turned the bikes for home. Along one whole side of that stretch, the old fence line had gone to multiflora rows. If you have never seen it, it is a hedge the old farmers planted for living fence, and left alone for 30 years, it makes a wall, woven, thorned, head high and higher, thick enough to stop a truck. You could not see into it, and nothing our size could push through it. Something on the far side of it began to run. I remember the sound before I understood it. A heavy crashing in step with us, keeping pace on the other side of that thorn wall, big brush breaking and that same forced breathing, and every one of us understood in the same instant that it was not moving away from us. It was moving with us, and then it was moving faster than us. It was trying to get ahead. To this day, I believe that, and Jarrett believes it, and Lori believes it. It was not chasing us the way a dog chases a car, out of noise and joy. It was running the length of that hedge to reach the gap at the end before we did, to come out onto the road in front of us and shut the road. There was a mind in it. That was the worst of it. The crashing and the grunting were terrible, but the intention was worse. Lori stood up on the pedals, and I flattened myself over the handlebars, and I remember the wind and the thorn wall blurring by, and the sound of the thing pounding along inside it, and it sounded, and I say this knowing how it sounded like it was running on all fours. That gait, that 4-beat drumming, big, soft, heavy feet coming down in a rhythm no man makes. We beat it to the end of the hedge. I think fear made us faster than we had any right to be. We came out past the roses and onto the good road, and we did not look back, and we did not stop pedaling until our own mailbox went by, and when we finally stood in the yard heaving, nobody laughed. Dad came home from work that evening with his sleeves rolled and the day still on him, and we told it all in a tumble, the dogs and the tree and the footprints and the thing behind the roses. He listened the way he listened, which was completely and without expression, and when we were done, he said, "All right, show me." We did not want to go. We told him so. He said, "I will be with you, and you will be fine." And that was the end of the discussion, because it was, and because some part of each of us knew that this was how it worked. You could be afraid of a place, or your father could stand in it, but not both. So we went, the 4 of us and him, back down the dead mile in the long gold light of the evening. A word about our dad, so you understand what kind of witness he was. He was a woodsman before he was anything else. He had spent the whole of his childhood in the timber and never really come out of it. And if he had not had a family to feed, I believe he would have gone into the bush somewhere and lived wild and been content. He could read ground the way other men read a newspaper. He knew every track that could be laid in Brown County mud. Deer and coon and bobcat and beaver and everything between. Knew them at a walking glance. Knew what made them and when and how fast it was going, and whether it was fat or lean. Nothing in those woods was strange to him. He looked at the tree the thing had gone up. He walked the rose wall and found the place where it had run, and the hedge there was destroyed, stove through and torn, 30 years of woven thorn broken open like something had been fired through it. He stood at that a while. Then he knelt over the footprint, and he was quiet a long time. While he was down there, he found the scat. It lay near the print, a big pile of it, and it was green. Not the green of anything I have seen an animal leave before or since. Bright green. Emerald and shiny, like it had a gloss to it, and there was a lot of it. Whatever left it was large, and it had been eating something that grew, and it had stood over that human-looking footprint to do it. Dad studied it all and stood up and dusted his knee and said, "I do not know what animal made that. Probably a deer." Lori said, "A deer can't climb a tree." He said, "That's true." And then he said the deer was still the most likely suspect. And he said it in a voice that closed the matter. And we walked home in the dusk, wanting very much to believe in that deer, and not believing in it even a little. A deer does not climb. A deer does not snort like a hog and shake a tree crown in a dead calm. A deer does not silence 3 dogs in the dark and leave a barefoot print longer than your father's boot. We knew it, and he knew we knew it. He was our father. He was laying a plank over a hole so his children could walk across. The plank held until morning. Lori woke early the next day, before the rest of us. Coming down, she heard voices in the kitchen and stopped on the stairs, because the voices were Mom and Dad, and they were sitting together at the kitchen table, and that alone was strange enough to stop a child on a stair. They were not table sitters, our parents. Their mornings ran on separate rails, but there they were with their coffee in the gray early light, talking low, and my sister sat down on the steps where the wall hid her, and she listened. And she heard our father say this. She has repeated it the same way for 40 years, and I believe her memory of it is close to word perfect, because there are things you hear once, at a certain age, that get driven in like a nail. He said, "I told the kids it was probably a deer. I don't know what kind of footprint that was. I don't know what kind of scat that was. I have never seen anything like it before." And then he told her not to let us go down that road anymore, not to ride it, not to walk it, not to follow anything down it, cat or dog or dare. It was not safe. He forbid it, and our father was not a forbidding man. He was a man who let his kids roam every ridge and hollow in that county because he had roamed them himself and trusted the woods with us. I have never seen anything like it before. Understand what that sentence weighed coming out of that man. This was a man who had spent 40-some years in the timber by then. A man the woods could not surprise. He had knelt over that print in the good light of evening with all his hard-won knowing, and it had answered to nothing in him, and it had shaken him. Lori said she could hear it in his voice through the wall, some low, careful note that had never been in it before. Our father, feigning nothing now, in the 1 hour of the day he thought no child was listening. She never told him what she heard. She came back up the stairs, quiet as she had gone down, and she carried it, the way the oldest carries things. We did not go back. Not because we were forbidden. We did not go back because the deer had died in the kitchen that morning. And once the deer was dead, there was nothing standing between us and whatever was actually down there in the green. The road went on standing empty. The weeds closed over the summer, and the summer closed over the year, and among ourselves, quietly, the way places get named in families, that dead mile of county blacktop stopped being the old road and became Monster Road. It is still Monster Road. I have to stop and think to recall that it was ever called anything else. That was 40 years ago, near enough. Not long back, I asked my brother and my sister to write down what they remembered, each on their own, without comparing. Because memory is like that lake. Things go down into it, and the surface tells you nothing. and you do not know what has been preserved down there in the cold, and what has rotted away, and what has shifted in the currents into some new shape. Jarrett wrote me pages. He remembered the weeds standing taller than we were, so that riding into that road was like disappearing, nothing left of the world but the broken strip of pavement ahead. He remembered the moment everything changed. 1 second the four of us laughing, the next second something huge forcing itself through the growth beside us, keeping pace. He never saw it either. In 40 years, understand, not one of us ever saw it. He remembered deep strained grunting, and he remembered, and this is the part he says has never left him, that when we sped up, it sped up, that it was not following us. It was working to get ahead of us, to cut us off before the end of the road. He remembered looking over at Lori and knowing she heard it too, and neither of them saying a word, just pedaling. He remembered the fear precisely. Not pretend fear, he wrote. The kind where your stomach drops and the whole world narrows down to getting out. And he remembered Dad. That Dad went down that road again by himself the next day, alone, which we children never knew at the time. And that whatever our father found or did not find down there alone, the only fruit of it was the same quiet verdict overheard through a kitchen wall. Stay away. I don't know what it was. And then there is my own piece, for whatever the piece of a 5-year-old is worth. I was the little one up on Lori's handlebars, hanging on in a panic with my feet held out of the spokes, and what I remember is not detail but scale. The thing seemed huge to me, massive, something on the order of a tiger, which is a strange word for an Indiana boy to reach for, but it is the word my memory reached for that day, and it has never once let go of it. And I do not remember any pig sound at all. What I remember is a growl, an airy, air-filled growl, breath and voice run together, and I carried that sound in me for decades without ever finding its match. Then one day, grown, I visited one of those big cat rescues, and I came to the enclosure where they kept the Siberian tigers, and one of them made its sound, that huffing, blowing, chuffing rumble a tiger makes, all that air driven through all that chest, and I stood at the fence in the middle of an ordinary afternoon and went cold to the soles of my feet, because I had heard that sound before, coming through a wall of thorns in the Indiana daylight when I was 5 years old. I do not claim it was a tiger, some escaped thing, maybe some animal that had no name in our woods. I was very little, and I hold it loose, but the body remembered, standing at that fence. The body keeps its own accounts. And then there is Jennifer. There were 4 of us on that road. You have heard from 3. My sister Jennifer passed not long ago of a cancer called angiosarcoma, a rare thing, a cancer of the blood vessels themselves, the kind of diagnosis that comes to maybe 1 person in a million. And it took her fast. She was there that day, 12 years old, riding Jarrett's handlebars, scared in the sun with the rest of us. She heard the thing in the roses. She saw the footprint. She carried her own piece of that road for 40 years. Her own angle on it, her own sounds and colors, whatever a little girl's eyes kept that the rest of ours did not. I never asked her for it. There was always going to be time to ask her for it. So her account is the missing one, the 4th testimony. It has gone where the valley went, down under the surface with the schoolhouses and the fence rows, and the moved and unmoved dead, into that dark that keeps everything and returns nothing. When we gathered our memories, we set a place for hers, the way you leave a chair empty. And this story is told partly so that the 3 pieces we still hold do not follow the 4th one down. The road is still there. The county never took it up. The bridges are long gone entire now, and the multiflora has the whole of one side, and I am told the weeds in high summer still stand head high over the broken pavement, and the lake still lies out beyond it, flat and blue, and telling nothing. Sometimes in a drought year, the water draws down, and the old world comes up briefly into the light. Foundations, roadbeds, the stumps of an orchard drowned 60 years, and people drive out to look at it like something surfacing. I do not know what was on that road in the summer of 1985. My father did not know, and he knew everything in those woods there was to know. It treed twice, it fought dogs in the dark and hushed them, it left a barefoot print too big for a man, and a green sign no woodsman could name, and it ran the length of a thorn wall on 4 beats, trying to head off 4 kids on 2 bicycles, and then it was gone. Out of the corn and the roses and the record, gone wherever such things go. Sometimes I think it came up out of the drowned country, that the water that covered all those rooms and roads and graves let something loose in the covering, the way any flood turns things out of their holes. And sometimes I think it was always in those hills, from long before the dam, from long before the county. And the road we children rode was never ours at all. We had only forgotten whose it was. The lake keeps what it keeps, so does the family. This is our piece of it, gathered while there were still hands to gather it, and set down here whole. Stay off the old road after dark. My father asked that of us once, in a kitchen, in a voice I am glad I never had to hear. We kept our word.